So our picture today is from the north coast of California. Lovely windy day, and Sherry has just captured those beautiful waves coming in, and I just want to thank Sherry so much for her work and what she brings to our conversation. So I'm going to read to you today, and then we're going to look at a story that is set in the context of coming to Zacchaeus' home. But I need to read through this for you, and then we'll go through the slides together. So like I say, it's going to be a little bit longer than usual. Starting with Luke 19, verse 1, it says, Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. Now behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and was rich, and he sought to see who Jesus was, but could not because of the crowd, for he was of short stature. So he ran ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was going to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said to him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must stay at your house. Now, we had a sycamore tree in our backyard, and I'm going to tell you, they are fabulous trees to climb. You would enjoy that. Verse 6, it says, and he made haste and came down, received Jesus joyfully, but when they saw it, they all complained, saying, he's gone to be a guest with a man who is a sinner. Then Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord. Now, this says the people are all able to hear this. Lord, Lord, I gave half my goods to the poor, and I've taken everything from anyone by false. And if I have taken anything from anyone by false accusation, I've restored it 4 times. And Jesus said, today salvation has come to this house, because he is also a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which is lost. So in that context, what I want to say is that Zacchaeus had repented. He had made himself right with God by confession and righting the wrongs in his life. Now let's go through a parable that Jesus has for the audience that is listening, okay? The title of this is Minas Invested, and if you invest a mina, you get a guaranteed return. Now I think that's really interesting. What does Zacchaeus have to do with that investment? Just tuck that away and let you ponder that. So my next slide would say, let's read through the whole story. We're going to work through the verses in the parable. Zacchaeus meeting Jesus is the context, though. Please tuck that away and do not let it go. So now let's read through the parable. It says, now as they heard these things, he spoke another parable, because he was near Jerusalem, and because they thought the kingdom of God would appear immediately. So this is another parable that says, well, let's be patient, but what does that kingdom really look like? So 19 verse 12 reads, therefore he said, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return. Now we know Jesus is going to explain the kingdom is yet future. He must complete the work of redemption, ascend to the Father, then return after he receives his kingdom. That is all going to be future. Continuing on, verses 13 and 14. So he called the 10 of his servants and delivered to them 10 minas. 10 minas was 100 days' wages. 100 days, almost a third of a year's of wages. And he said to them, do business till I come. In other words, take this money and invest it. Notice that the owner provided everything his servants needed to accomplish a return. It says they were still about their business of the kingdom until he returns. He provides the new church with everything it's going to need. Verse 14, but his citizens hated him, sent a delegate after him saying, we will not have this man reign over us. And I think that's interesting because Jesus is aware of the hostility, and he is speaking to those who hold that hostility in that multitude. Jesus reveals the attitude of the world towards his coming kingdom. The rejection of the gospel would and should not be a surprise to us. Continue on, verse 15. And so it was that when he returned, having received the kingdom, he then commanded these servants to whom he had given the money to be called to him, that he might know how much every man had gained by trading. So Jesus is now speaking prophetically in this parable about his own return and saying, hey, how have we flourished as a church? As this new body is coming into formation, he returns as a king and he asks, how was business? There will be an accounting for what has been done with his provisions for us that he has given to us. Verse 16. Then came the first saying, Master, your mina has earned 10 minas. And he said to them, well done, good servant, because you are faithful in a very little, have authority over 10 cities. Then the second came, saying, Master, your mina has earned 5 minas. And likewise he said to them, you also be over 5 cities. The investors are blessed with a return always. So far in this parable, whatever is invested from the master produces a return. Then another came, saying, Master, here's your mina, which I have kept put away in a handkerchief, for I feared you, because you're an austere man. You collect what you do not deposit and reap what you do or did not sow. Now, there's a strange thing taking place here. First of all, this particular servant, I put in my slide for you, had pretended care. You know, wrapping the money in a handkerchief was just pretend. He says, I feared you. That's another false statement, because if he really truly feared, he would have invested or at least banked the funds, hoping and praying for a return. But instead, he just took it and put it on the shelf, wrapped in a handkerchief. What do you do with the gifts that God has given to you? That's a question that is going to be asked, according to Jesus, on his return. Are you getting a return with the talents and the gifts and the marvelous things he's gifted you in the church? And he said to him, out of your own mouth I will judge you, you wicked servant. You knew that I was an austere man, collecting what I did not deposit and reaping what I did not sow. Why then did you not put my money in the bank, that at my coming I might collect it with interest? And he said to those who stood by, take the mina from him and give it to him who has 10 minas. Notice verse 25. But they said to him, Master, he has 10 minas. The crowd was shocked at the judgment. They were shocked. They verbally exclaimed, why would you do that? He's already got so much. Jesus responds, for I say to you that everyone who has will be given, and from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. So in light of this text, I pose this question to you. Are you making an investment with what you have been blessed with? We're not talking about money, but about the giftedness from the providence of God. Because if you act like you don't have it and you put it on the shelf, it's going to be taken away and given to someone else. Continuing the parable, verse 27, but bring here those enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them and slay them before me. This is final judgment language. There's some people who don't believe in a judgment. The reaction of the gospel, being saved by faith alone, will cause people to reject Christ. Those who have a self-made religion based on their good efforts rather than freely receiving the given gift of salvation will hate. They will hate the Master. Who will they hate? Hate who? They will hate others. We're challenged even today with the implications of this parable. The church has been given all it needs to be successful, always producing a return. Jesus asked the question, how is business? How is business? That's an important question. This is a lovely photograph Sherry took at sunset on the Washington coast. All those birds posing for her, they were just so interested. Love the light of this picture. Sherry, thank you again for your ministry, for your pictures. They are such a blessing. Please understand you have been gifted. Take those gifts and make an investment. There is a guaranteed return. Blessings. Take care now.